The year is 1622 in a hot, stuffy room in Luanda. The Portuguese governor, João Correia de Sousa, sits high on a velvet throne. He looks down. Across from him, on the hard floor, is a single, small cushion. This was not a mistake. This was a message. A calculated insult meant to show power. The cushion was for a visiting diplomat, a woman sent to talk for her people. The message was simple. You are beneath me. Your people are beneath us. This meeting was designed to be an act of humiliation from the very first second. To understand her next move, you have to know the enemy she faced. The Portuguese were not just traitors. They were building an empire fueled by human lives. They had a huge, hungry need for enslaved people. These people were sent to work on sugar farms in a faraway land called Brazil. This was a brutal business. It saw African people not as humans, but as goods to be bought and sold. Their entire world was being torn apart by this machine of greed. The meeting in that hot room was not about trade. It was about survival against an enemy who did not see you as a person. So who was the woman sent to face this impossible challenge? Her name was Nzinga. She was not a queen yet. She was a diplomat sent by her brother, the king. He sent her because she had a special kind of genius that he did not. Nzinga was a master of words. She could speak many languages, even the language of her enemy, Portuguese. She had spent years watching them. She studied their ways. She knew how they thought. She was ready for their games of power. But the real genius here is not just that she fought back. It's how she turned their own arrogance into a weapon against them. The Portuguese thought they could control the room with symbols. A high chair meant power. A low cushion meant weakness. Nzinga saw this game clearly. She understood that this was a battle of pictures, not just words. She could have refused to sit. She could have argued. Instead, she chose to change the picture completely. She decided to introduce a new symbol. She made a quiet signal with her hand. One of her female attendants walked forward. The woman knelt on her hands and knees, making her back flat and strong. She did not speak. She simply waited. This woman became a human throne. Nzinga sat down on her back. Now, she was perfectly level with the governor. She looked him straight in the eye. She did not just refuse his insult. She created her own power right there in the middle of his room. From that throne, made of a living person, she began to speak. Her voice was calm. It was steady. It cut through the room's thick, tense air. She did not raise her voice to show power. She already had it. The governor's reasons for war fell apart. She took his words, one by one, and showed how weak they were. She knew their laws better than they did. She showed how they broke their own rules. The great empire suddenly looked small. Then came her demands. She did not ask. She told them. First, every one of her people taken as a slave must be returned. Not some, all of them. This was not a negotiation. It was a command. She finished with one last point. The Portuguese forts built on her land must be torn down. Their soldiers must leave. She stared at the governor, a queen looking down from her throne, and waited. The power in the room had completely shifted. And here is the hard truth history often skips. The Portuguese agreed. The governor signed a treaty of peace. But the signature was a lie. It meant nothing. The moment Nzinga left the city of Luanda, the attacks started again. The slave raids got worse. The shocking lesson was clear. A piece of paper could not stop a greedy empire. She learned that day that true power did not come from treaties. It came from strength. Her journey back to her kingdom was filled with this dark new knowledge. Then, tragedy struck. Her brother, the king, who had sent her to make peace, died. He had lost all hope after the treaty failed. The old stories from that time are not clear. Some say the king took his own life, broken by his failure. But other whispers tell a different story. They say Nzinga knew his weakness would destroy them all. and she took the throne to save her people from him. That moment in the governor's room was not the end. It was the beginning. It was the first move in a war that would last for 40 years. The human chair was not an insult. It was a declaration of war. Her plan for this war was genius. She became a master of guerrilla warfare. That means she didn't fight big, open battles. Her army would strike fast from the jungle and then vanish like ghosts. She made alliances with other tribes, uniting them against the invaders. She even allied with the enemies of the Portuguese, the Dutch. She was always one step ahead. Her 40-year war was not a single event. It was a masterclass in survival. A lifetime spent outthinking, outfighting, and outlasting an enemy with more men and more guns. She turned every loss into a lesson. But the true impact of her long fight is a hidden truth of world history. By keeping the Portuguese army busy, she did something incredible, something that changed the world. Her resistance reached far beyond her own kingdom's borders. This constant war crippled the Portuguese slave trade in Central Africa. For nearly 4 decades, their supply lines were broken. Their power was challenged. Historians believe her actions saved countless thousands of people from a terrible fate. She was a shield for her entire region. And here is the most astonishing part of her story. She didn't just fight. She won. Not with one final, glorious battle. She won by refusing to be broken. In her old age, she forced the Portuguese back to the negotiating table. This time, they signed a treaty they would actually respect. She died peacefully in her 80s, a baptized Catholic, one last strategic move to protect her people, and a queen on her own terms, in her own land. So why is this brilliant queen so often forgotten? Why is a military genius who defied an empire just a small note in most history books? The answer is simple, and it is sinister. The old stories told by colonizers were built on a lie. The lie that they were superior, bringing civilization to others. A powerful, clever African queen who outsmarted them for decades completely shatters that myth. They could not celebrate her victory, so they tried to erase her story. That human chair was more than a shocking act of defiance. It was a declaration of a different kind of power. It was a throne built not from gold or jewels. It was a throne built from the unbreakable bond between a leader and her people, a trust so deep that a global empire could not crush it. Her power came from them, and they gave it willingly. This forces us to ask a powerful question. How many other stories like Nzinga's have been buried? How many other thrones of defiance are waiting in the shadows of history, waiting to be rediscovered? That throne of defiance was more than just a seat. It was an idea. It was a message sent across the world. A message that power is not given. It is taken. Her story became a secret weapon. It was passed down in whispers from one generation to the next. The tale of the queen who refused to kneel became a fire in the hearts of her people. It showed them that even a huge empire could be challenged. Picture this, a small village in Angola, centuries later. A grandmother tells a child about Nzinga. She doesn't just tell a story. She teaches a lesson about courage, about never giving up. The result of these stories was powerful. It helped a nation remember its strength. It kept the spirit of freedom alive, even when things were very hard. This was Nzinga's long-lasting victory, a victory of the mind. But her enemies tried to erase this. The Portuguese writers told a different story. In their books, she was not a hero. They painted her as a monster, a cruel and power-hungry woman. They did this for a simple reason. Her real story was dangerous to them. If a woman could lead a 40-year war and win, what did that say about their own power? It showed their empire was not as strong as they claimed. This is the part of history that gets buried. The truth was twisted by the people who won the wars on paper. They controlled the books. So they controlled the story. For a long, long time. But you can't hide a fire forever. Her truth survived. It lived in the names of streets in the capital city of Luanda. It lived in the spirit of a people who fought for their own freedom, centuries later. Think about the sheer scale of her fight. For 4 decades, her small kingdom held off a global superpower. That is like one person holding back the entire ocean with their bare hands, year after year. So the final secret of Queen Nzinga is not just that she fought. It is that she taught a whole people how to resist. Her legacy is not an old story. It is a living guide on how to be free.